What is going on, guys? It's Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, I'm going to go over some of the headlines that I believe everyone should know. Normally, we don't do videos on Saturdays and Sunday, but obviously the last 3 weekends, there have been stories hitting left and right, and absolutely insane escalations have been happening. Just to go over a couple of the things that we're going to go over. Of course, Xi just got a third term. You got Shogu warns of uncontrolled escalation. We have the UKR conflict, huge moves being done. And then the first time in 80 years, the U.S. Army deploys Screaming Eagles 101st Airborne Division just miles away from UKR. Now, we actually have information from Fugel family, and I want to say, because that actually officially came out, that maybe the information from that was actually information that was kind of skewed, but I don't know. So I'll let you know the two kind of angles that came with that, because it may be something else. But the power of one, the confirmation of Xi to an unprecedented third term. All of us saw this coming. Everybody knew that he was preparing for this. I covered all of the different steps that were taken to essentially make sure that he was concrete going to be there for, pretty much the rest of his life. In fact, a few years ago, he set up kind of the party to where he would be able to run for, indefinitely, or be there until he, perished, right? It says after the CCP's week-long Congress ended on the Monday, it shows how he has cemented his place, and they literally use those words, cemented his place as the country's most powerful ruler since Zhao Zedong, which was the last ruler that did more than 2 terms, I believe. And it says on the country's top governing body, the Politburo Standing Committee, is stacked with loyalists to him with no clear successor. The quote was, "We must be highly vigilant and always maintain a top level of clarity and prudence and continually push for strict and comprehensive party governance so that the century-old party will continue to flourish in its self-revolution and always be the strongest and most reliable backbone of the Chinese people." One thing that I do know, and I have met several people that used to live there and used to work somewhat high up. They've met Xi at least 3 or 4 times. They said that his close inner circle really do like him, and they really do look up to him. Where you get other leaders around the country and around different countries, everybody pretends to like their leader, but really they, hate his guts. Apparently he does have, his inner circle actually does think very highly of him. Whereas like NK, that Kim Jong-un, those people are just afraid of, getting put in front of a cannon. But so that's at least what I heard. And that's what I heard from some people that I believe, I think they're right, or at least as of like 5 or 6 years ago when they were, living there. It says Li, the nation's number 2 official, is a proponent of market-oriented reforms. It says that China reforms Xi's dominance, removes number 2 Li Qiang. So this number 2 guy, it says, which is in contrast to Xi's move to expand state control over the economy. A party congress effectively removed the premier Li Keqiang from senior leadership. Li, the nation's number 2 official, is a proponent of the market-oriented reforms, which are in contrast to Xi's move to expand state control over the economy. The week-long meeting, as it wrapped up on Saturday, also wrote that Xi's major policy initiatives on the economy and the military into the party's constitution, as well as his push to rebuild and strengthen the party's position by declaring it absolutely central to China's development and future. So at the same time, he's concreting his place. Essentially, there is no clear successor anymore. And then Russia's Shogu warns of uncontrolled escalation in Ukraine conflict. It says that Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, which we've talked about many times, in fact, recently, I believe some of the stories about him kind of disappearing out of the public eye, freaked a lot of people out, along with a couple of the other guys that were extremely important. It says, told his French counterpart in a telephone call on Sunday, it said that the situation in UKR was rapidly deteriorating and trending towards uncontrolled escalation. Mind you, this is after a week. If you're just coming to this video from somebody sharing it, They have most of their allies, India, China, all of these other countries, including the I countries in the Middle East, they have all told their people to get out. They have told their embassies to basically get their people out of there. So something big is coming, or at least that's the idea that most people have, especially when it's not our media, throwing out possible Ganda or whatever and saying, get out of there. It's them actually evacuating their people. And since they are allies with the people, the enemy, then you're kind of like, well, did the enemy tell them that they were going to be doing something? It says they discussed the situation in UKR, which is rapidly deteriorating. The defense ministry said in a readout of the call, it is trending towards further uncontrolled escalation. We have seen basically pattern after pattern after pattern of just escalation after escalation after escalation. It says the defense ministry did not provide any further information on its statement, but it did say a so-called dirty boom boom uses conventional explosives laced with radioactive material. And this was mentioned, it said, in a phone call from the French defense minister. And this is all stuff that they have to put down. Shogu said Moscow had concerns over UKR using one of these dirty boom booms in a conflict without providing evidence to support the suggestion that UKR might use such a weapon. So they're talking about using something that has radioactive tendencies, goes boom, and really messes up a lot of people. Now, no matter which side of the story you believe there, if something like that does happen, then we get into huge escalations, because then, of course, a lot more people will be pissed off and a lot more people will get involved. And then Russia unleashes missiles on UKR as Putin tries to shut down electricity, heating, and water. They hit a ton of the actual strategic places, including a lot of the main infrastructure. So this is definitely what we actually thought would happen in the first 2 weeks is now happening now. A lot of people say, well, why aren't they knocking out power? Why aren't they knocking out their water? Why aren't they knocking out all this in the very beginning of it? Now they are. So if that, and by the way, there's, both sides are confirming that a lot of this stuff has gotten hit. So there's little, reason to doubt it. And then it says they rained down on power facilities from Odessa, the Black Sea resort in the south, to Kovel, a medieval town near the Belarus border in the north. By the way, in Belarus, they are just absolutely loading up. They are putting soldiers on the borders. Poland, I would highly recommend watching everything that Poland does. Obviously, after going into a lot of the research and the different things that look at how this would play out step by step. A lot of the step by steps don't actually take into account what Xi might do to take Taiwan at the same time. But if you are just looking at us versus Vlad, any of the simulations, any of the situations where we are going directly against them are essentially our guys in there somehow, or our guys close to the border getting kind of, some sort of injury from something that Vlad does, and then we go into a direct conflict with them. Almost all those simulations involve Poland joining us because they're essentially right there. They're right on the border. They're a very important strategic place, and it would be one of the few places that we could actually enter Vlad's country from, or at least it would be the most strategic place to enter there from. It says that it's the 13th day in a row that drones and missiles have targeted the war-torn nation's power system, resulting in blackouts, water shortages, and desperate pleas from leaders for citizens to limit usage. So there's volunteer usage, reducing. A lot of people are reducing what they're using. They say a lot of businesses are shutting down their electricity for hours a day. But if you look, there's still a lot of people there that have not evacuated. They're running business as usual in some areas, and those areas have recently just got hit, or at least a bunch of them. And then it says the first time in 80 years, U.S. Army deploys Screaming Eagles 101st Airborne Division just miles away from UKR. Now, I'm not, I will say this. We were going to do this before the video, before the news about this came out, that we got comments saying, let me see if I can read this. Let's see if I can find it fast enough. Let's see. Essentially what the person said is that they knew somebody that was a ranking official, and they said that they were actually deployed the 101st. They specifically said the 101st was deployed in UKR. I believe that because we did not hear back from them afterwards, I believe that they probably got the game of telephone, and I'm not trying to put down whoever sent us that, and again, I don't have it in front of me, but it was basically saying that the 101st Airborne Division specifically, and that's before this official news came out that they were going to be deployed for the first time in 80 years, just miles from UKR. What they heard and what they sent us is that they were going to be deployed to UKR, in UKR. And what I'm thinking is maybe that friend or whoever they knew was hearing about this or knew about this, and it basically through the game of telephone, it got changed into that. But if there's any chance that those are actually not going to the border and are going into UKR, that's how things could get really, really nasty. That's how things could get really bad. If they, for some reason, were deployed there or secretly deployed there and something hits them, again, under almost all the simulations, if something, even a few or even one American soldier gets, taken out in UKR, that's how people can get jumped into this thing. If they have deployed the 101st and part of the Airborne Division is there, then that's a big deal. If they are deployed in there. What the official news is it says an elite unit of the U.S. Army is practicing for a potential conflict with Russia, just a few miles away from UKR at a time when Vlad's defense minister Sergei Shoigu took the rare decision of holding telephone talks with his U.S. counterpart Lloyd Austin to discuss the conflict on October 22nd. Now remember, he just talked to the French counterpart. He's talking to everybody right now. Something is going on, or at least that's what most of us believe. I believe it. And then it says the 101st Airborne Division is a modular infantry division of the United States Army that is particularly trained for air assault missions, dropping in and getting it done. It says it gained notoriety during World War II for participation in the Battle of the Bulge and the Normandy landings. It says the 101st Airborne Division was reclassified twice during the Vietnam conflict, first as an air mobile division and then as an air assault division. Brigadier General John Lubas, the division's deputy commander, and Colonel Edwin Mathiadis, commander of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, traveled in Black Hawk military helicopters for hour-long trip to the very edge of NATO territory. They're right there. It says which is about 3 miles from Romania's border with UKR. So they are right there. And it says the development is significant as it comes against the backdrop of UKR troops advancing into the annexed territory of Kherson. At the same time, the Vlad's country are believed to have fortified the region to prevent Kiev from retaking it. It says that Shoigu, of course, holds a second call with U.S. Defense Secretary, which is what they mentioned in that last piece. It said that Lloyd Austin, of course, talked to Sergei Shoigu today. It says the second time in 3 days, and held a flurry of calls with 3 other counterparts from NATO countries. They're talking to all these different NATO countries. Moscow provided no details on the conversation with Austin, which came after 2 men spoke on Friday for the first time since May. So they haven't talked for months, and now they have. So it says they discussed the situation in UKR, which is rapidly deteriorating. The Vlad's defense ministry said of Shoigu call with French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu, it is trending towards further uncontrolled escalation, which we covered in the beginning. And then North and South Korea exchanged warning shots along the disputed sea boundary amid heightened tensions following NK's recent barrage of missile tests, which, if you know, not on top of the missile tests, they have actually been firing these kind of cannon artillery shells and doing it into the buffer zone of South Korea. South Korea, of course, we talked about how even like BTS is getting pulled into their mandatory military service. It's just giving you this idea that they're getting ready for a conflict, even though they say it's been a mandatory service for everybody to do their 2 years. You would think, just like most countries, there's people that get special privileges or outs of that. But even the boy band, I don't know if they're going to be able to bring their makeup with them, but again, even them are going to have to serve 2 years, apparently. It says NK and South Korea exchanged warning shots over disputed sea territory. South Korea said if it fired shots after a North merchant ship breached boundary in response, NK says it fired 10 rounds of artillery shells as a warning. It comes week after heightened tensions over missile tests from the north. So if they accidentally have ships there, if they have something there of theirs, if they have something important, and they actually accidentally get hit by artillery shells, even artillery shells, something like that could spark off from them. So there are tons of hot spots, including in the Middle East, which we continue to follow on top of all of this. So we are in a really, really, really freaky time. And that's why we encourage everybody to keep paying attention to this stuff and make sure that you are keeping up with it, especially if you're a patriarch or matriarch and you're in charge of your family. Have a plan just in case things go south. This is the closest we've been. Again, I hope everything goes back to normal, but personally, I don't think it is. I think that they're doing a huge exchange of power right now, and the entire planet is essentially changing hands of who controls things. And some of the big controlling powers are battling with each other, and we are always stuck in the middle. Civilians are going to be, of course, we're basically the stuff they step on when they step out into their lawn. Like, they don't care about us. That's just my opinion. I would love to hear yours. Thank you, Kenny Crowder. I can't read your comment, but I thank you for doing your super chat. And then also remember to follow tomorrow's show. We're going to cover everything that happened over the weekend. Make sure to go to marfooglenews.com if you want to support us. We're independent. Of course, lots of stuff going on. You can go get yourself some food. If you want long-term survival MREs, you can go get it through us at a discount and help our channel at the same time. That's at marfooglenews.com/prep. If you want to get a wired-in device to your car that will protect it from EMP, you can go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. And at least go check it out and check out what it does. And make sure, do your research on it. It's the same company that's now outfitting agencies like DOD and DHS. And that's just a reminder that the government and the military, they're going to protect themselves. Nobody's going to protect you except for you. And Hurricane Katrina is a big example of that. When things really go south, the police and all the people that are supposed to have a plan ready, they're going to save their own grandmas and their own moms out of nursing homes. They're going to save their own families. Everything you've ever seen, it's like everybody's looting during a disaster. You see a police and they raise their hands up, and the police runs right past you to grab their own food. That's the situation it will be if everything really does hit the fan. And I'm hoping it doesn't. I don't wish this to happen. If I ever get to pat myself on the back and say that this is correct, then I believe I won't be able to tell you about it, because I think the internet will be down if we have some of this going on. And I know this because even if it is on our side to control information, if stuff really goes down, you can see in their exercises of what they'll do. Even if there's a big escalation involving us, they would immediately cut information. So information is the first thing that would go. So just keep that in mind. And make sure to, of course, follow us, marfooglenews.com. You can see all of the sources for everything I used today. Every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that I talked about today is on the website. So make sure to utilize that. It's a lot of work to put that up there for every single show. Make sure to go and check out the show. Dex and I are going to be on tomorrow, so make sure to follow our show on our sister channel, Marfoogle TV. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Be safe. Be prepared. And Marf out.